friends, we are back and we are working on our next story element, or our first main course story element, I guess I should say. So yesterday we talked about the 6 different elements of a story, and today we're going to go back over and we're going to talk about plot maps. And I know we've talked about plot maps, at least in my classroom, multiple times. Up here we had like 3 different plot maps. So yes, we're doing plot maps again. I know. I'm so excited about these though. All right, so page 22, this is our next blank page where we're working on our plot maps. Once again, go ahead and make sure you have this written down in your table of contents. You are going to need your reading notebook, and you are going to need a pencil in order to get this lesson done today. So we have our plot maps right here. So we did our story elements yesterday, and we are talking about plots, the events in a story. So here we are talking plot map, and I'm just going to be goofy and write again. So we're going to still be talking about those plot maps again. And this time I want you guys to pay attention before you start writing or drawing out your plot map, because it's going to look just a little bit different. So when you were younger, you had all of these lovely picture books that you read, and you read, and now that you're in 4th grade, hopefully in 3rd grade, but definitely by 4th grade, you should be reading all of these chapter books. And the nice thing about chapter books is that they're a little bit longer and they're just as amazing. However, with chapter books, we don't get to use the same plot map that we might have used earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and find about halfway through or halfway in the middle of my notebook, and I'm going to draw a nice big rectangle there. And this is my climax, the most exciting portion of the story, where the problem and the resolution get solved. And normally I would just have you draw a straight line all the way down here, but we're going to do it a little differently. I'm actually going to start at the bottom, and it might not work just perfectly, and that's okay. But when we're talking about plot maps in chapter books, they're going to have a problem, and then it's going to get solved. And then they'll have another problem, and then it gets solved. And then it has another problem right up here until we get to the climax. And then at the end of the book, we still have our resolution, our solving our problem. Down here in the bottom right-hand corner, we're going to do our big rectangle and split it in half. And we have, I'm not sure what I should see. We should have problem, and then we have our solution. And remember, where our problem and our solution meet up, that is our climax. So whatever our problem is, however our main characters solve that problem, that is going to be the climax of the story. We should also have characters. This is a little new as well. So remember, we talked yesterday in our story elements that we have characters and setting, as well as the problem, solution, and theme. So our plot is all of those events in a story. And in our plot map, we don't want to have just our problem, solution, and climax. We want to have our characters, our setting, and we're going to have to find room somewhere. Let's just put it right over here. Underneath our front part is the theme. So this is what our new plot map is going to look like. And if I were to say do the book Molly Lou Melon, which I read a little earlier today, you know, Molly Lou, her big problem was that she was teased by Ronald Durkin. And the solution that she had was to just ignore him. And so our climax of that story was when Molly Lou came through and she actually convinced, or she won over and made friends with Ronald. Now, Molly Lou is a short story, so it is a picture book, but we do have a couple of different problems before we get to that big one. So our first problem is that Molly Lou Mellon moved away. So her first problem, well, I guess we should start, Molly Lou was different. So remember, she had the big buck teeth. She smiled really big. She couldn't sing very well. So Molly Lou was very different, and her grandma kept telling her it was okay. And then Molly Lou moved away, and part of that was that grandma wasn't there anymore. So her grandmother wasn't nearby to make her feel better. So Molly Lou was different. Then our first problem was that Molly Lou moved away, and then her grandma wasn't nearby, and she was having problems making some friends. Remember, Ronald was teasing, but instead of Ronald teasing Molly, he thought he was going to be able to tease her and embarrass her and make all the other children laugh. But instead of that happening, what happened, and this was a little bit of a saving grace right here, so a little bit of our drop that came down. Oh, let's wait for that to, there we go. A little bit of our drop down was that the children all liked Molly Lou. So we had a couple of small problems. Molly Lou moving away, grandma wasn't near, Ronald was another problem, and then the children all liked Molly Lou. And at the climax of our story, Molly Lou made friends with Ronald, and we could say that our resolution, what happened after she made friends with Ronald, is that Ronald helped her stack pennies on her teeth. Now, this is not something I would suggest that you do. Stacking pennies on your teeth is not a very good thing or a clean thing to do, so please don't go stack pennies on your teeth. But in our story, that was what Molly Lou and Ronald were doing. And we will take care of our theme, our characters, and our setting later, but this is just our general plot map. And I want you guys to pay attention and remember that our plot map can be a little jagged or a little crooked. It doesn't go straight up nice and smooth. We can have tiny problems. For example, a chapter should have a small problem and then it gets solved. And then it has another small problem and then it gets solved. So if you've been paying attention in our Among the Hidden book, for those of you who've been reading that with us, we've had small chapters where, Luke was getting in trouble and then solving it, and then Luke was having problems trying to clean the house and solving it, and finding the other child across the hall or across the street. So we're going to keep working on going through that chapter book until we get to the climax, the most exciting portion of that book. All right, thank you again for joining us, and make sure you have all of these notes written down so you are ready to work on them tomorrow during our class.